Welcome back to The Explainer. So, have you ever wondered why you feel an absolute instant spark with one person, but then a seemingly perfect interaction with someone else just completely falls flat? Well, we often tend to think of romantic feelings as this spontaneous, indescribable magic. But the truth, it's actually a highly structured chronological sequence. Today, we're going to decode the multi-layered timeline of human attraction. We'll be breaking down the exact triggers that move us all the way from primal instinct to magnetic influence. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The biology of first impressions. 2. The psychology of self-perception. 3. The power of observation. 4. The strategy of tension. And finally, 5. Hidden triggers. Let's dive right in. All right, starting things off with Section 1, the biology of first impressions. We have to begin at the very first split second. And what's absolutely fascinating about this phase is that it is entirely evolutionary. Your brain is running this incredibly complex series of survival and reproductive calculations in literally milliseconds. It's not poetry, right? It's data processing. Visually, we're looking for signs of health. Your nose acts like a chemical detective, picking up on MHC molecules just to gauge immune system compatibility. Sound, touch, and even the chemical cues of a first kiss all act as pass or fail tests. It's a very, unromantic biological checklist. But when a potential partner actually passes these sensory checks, your brain floods with a chemical called norepinephrine. This kicks your fight or flight system into gear, creating literal tunnel vision and supercharging your memory of the moment. That is exactly why you never forget a great first kiss. Your biology is screaming at you, hey, pay attention. Let's zoom in on the sense of sound for a second. Biologically speaking, men generally prefer higher-pitched, breathy voices, while women tend to favor lower-pitched voices with narrow formant spacing, which evolutionary psychology links to body size. But here is the wild twist. Regardless of those baseline preferences, research shows that both men and women naturally lower their vocal pitch when they're actively flirting with someone they find attractive. So it turns out we all subtly try to sound just a little bit more like Barry White or Marilyn Monroe when we're turning on the charm. Now, let's look at the sense of touch. Tell me, does a hot drink change your personality? I know it sounds completely absurd, but the answer actually reveals a massive blind spot in how we perceive other people. There's this famous psychological experiment where participants were asked to briefly hold either a hot cup of coffee or an iced coffee right before rating a stranger's personality. Get this, those who held the hot drink overwhelmingly perceived the stranger as warmer, happier, and more generous. Meanwhile, the folks holding the iced coffee rated the exact same stranger as cold and stoic. The takeaway here is huge. Your physical environment and your tactile sensations can directly manipulate your emotional perception of someone else. So, next time you're setting up a first date, maybe grab a warm latte instead of an iced tea. Moving right along to Section 2, the psychology of self-perception. So, biology gets you through the door, but your internal framing dictates what happens next. The reality is the way you view your own attractiveness heavily dictates how others are going to view you. This brings us to a really interesting concept known as the Sherlock Paradox. Just like the famous detective looking for clues, our minds are constantly, actively scanning our environment to confirm the beliefs we already hold about ourselves. If you genuinely believe you're attractive, you'll interpret a brief glance from a stranger across the room as intrigue. But if you believe you're unattractive, you'll interpret that exact same glance as judgment. It literally becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's break down how this builds into a cycle, which is often called contingent self-esteem. It all starts with that internal belief. Let's say you believe you just aren't enough. Well, you're going to engage in aligned behavior. Maybe you avoid eye contact, you shrink your posture, or you constantly put yourself down in conversation. Naturally, this behavior repels people, which then provides you with external confirmation of your insecurity, leading to an even stronger negative belief. It's actually kind of tragic when you think about it. You aren't unattractive because of your physical features. You are literally projecting an energy that instructs others not to be attracted to you, and you're doing it without even realizing it. All right, Section 3, the power of observation. Now we're moving into the behavioral phase. How do we project our psychology outward to break the ice and create an irresistible magnetic rapport? It can actually start with just 2 simple words, you seem. Most people approach conversations like they're conducting a job interview, asking generic questions like, so, what do you do? Or, how's your night going? But starting an observation with you seem fundamentally shifts the entire vibe from a sterile exchange of facts into a profoundly magnetic emotional connection. In clinical psychology, this is called perceptive attunement.
Basically, it's the ability to notice and accurately reflect the inner world of another person. When you say something like, "You seem like the kind of person who turns disasters into adventures," you're showing that you really, truly see them. This triggers mirror neurons in their brain, making them feel completely understood. And biologically speaking, feeling truly seen triggers the release of oxytocin, which is the exact chemical responsible for human bonding.
So why is this specific phrasing such a game changer? First off, it signals deep observation in a world where, let's face it, everyone is completely distracted. Second, it invites curiosity without the pressure of a direct interview-style question. And finally, it activates self-disclosure. A 2012 Harvard study actually proved that talking about ourselves lights up the exact same reward centers in the brain as food or money. By offering an observation, you're giving them this irresistible opportunity to open up.
Next up, Section 4, the strategy of tension.
Okay, so once that initial connection is made, how do you maintain it? We're going to objectively analyze the complex dynamics of behavioral maintenance here, looking clinically at how tension and unpredictability sustain attraction over time. To really grasp this, we look to concepts inspired by Machiavelli, the lion and the fox. The lion represents power, boundaries, and absolute stillness. It's the ability to hold your ground without yelling or over-explaining yourself. The fox, on the other hand, represents intelligence and quiet observation, the ability to watch without reacting to emotional bait. Embodying both creates a highly attractive psychological tension. Think about it. If you're only the lion, you seem unstable. If you're only the fox, you kind of lack a spine. But together, you create a perfectly balanced personality that is completely unpredictable.
And this perfectly illustrates how tension plays out through intermittent reinforcement. From a strictly behavioral standpoint, when a boundary is crossed, the response isn't to start arguing. It's the sudden, cold withdrawal of presence. Conversely, loyalty and respect are met with small, unpredictable rewards. Clinically speaking, dispensing rewards slowly but pulling away instantly trains the human nervous system a lot like a casino does. That unpredictability keeps the mind actively engaged and always coming back to the table. Which brings us to one of Machiavelli's most famous and honestly most misunderstood quotes. "It is much safer to be feared than loved." Now, if we objectively analyze this in the context of modern attraction, fear doesn't mean aggression or cruelty at all. It simply refers to psychological gravity. It's the underlying knowledge that a partner has solid boundaries and will not hesitate to walk away if those boundaries are crossed. Without that perceived psychological gravity, love can very quickly become lazy and taken for granted. And finally, Section 5, Hidden Triggers of Attraction. For our final segment, let's do a rapid-fire breakdown of some highly specific research-backed anomalies that give an instant, sometimes subconscious, boost to how attractive you appear. The year 2014. That was the year a fascinating study in the journal Psychology of Music proved that just the mere presence of background music significantly increases physical and emotional connections between conversation partners. Music alters the atmosphere, and that atmosphere directly bleeds into how attractive you seem to the person sitting right across from you. So, rule of thumb, if you're hosting a dinner or a date, never leave the room in silence. Put on a playlist. Now, what about your facial expressions? Well, the American Psychological Association found a polarizing effect regarding smiles that is honestly pretty surprising. Frequent, genuine smiling significantly increases perceived attractiveness in women, signaling positivity and warmth. However, for men, the exact opposite was found to be true. Men were perceived as more attractive when they smiled sparingly. Subconsciously, it seems many women are drawn to those brooding, reserved personality types that are so often romanticized in fiction. And here is the simplest visual hack you can possibly deploy. The color red. Treat this like a rapid-fire cheat code. Across multiple studies, incorporating red into your wardrobe instantly boosts your perceived attractiveness by communicating subliminal messages of boldness and romance. Pair that psychological color hack with the biological fact that a clean, well-kept slight stubble is rated as universally more attractive than a fully clean-shaven face or a massive beard, and you've got some highly actionable data to work with. Which brings us to the end of today's explainer. As we've seen, attraction isn't just spontaneous magic. It's a really potent mix of biological sensory data, internal self-perception, profound perceptive observation, and the quiet power of psychological tension. So if attraction is a system that can be understood and heavily influenced, who will you become to trigger it? Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and I really hope this changes the way you view every interaction from here on out.